Hi guys, this is Mrs. Beichner, and I'm going to explain a little bit about how to do the key concept chart assignment that you were taking a look at. So the packet that you have in front of you, which should look like the screen in front of you right now, period 6, 1865 to 1898, what this is it's part of the curriculum that the College Board, the people who write the tests and the AP class curriculum, that they put together to tell teachers basically what it is that needs to be in the class and on the test. So it's a really good guide to the kinds of things that will turn up on the actual test. It's a good way to kind of focus in on what they want you to know about U.S. history, which is, of course, a pretty big subject otherwise. So if you scroll into the packet, to flip your first page, you'll see this page right here, and there's a couple things going on. Basically, throughout the packet, you're going to see these key concepts. These are like big overriding understandings that the College Board want you to have about U.S. history, and then each of them is going to be broken up. So you see Roman numeral 1 down here, large-scale industrial production, and if you keep scrolling through, you'll see 6.1 Roman numeral 2, 6.1 Roman numeral 3, and then each of them have these little sub-understandings. What you're going to be doing for this assignment is you're going to be filling in this blank box right here. I'm circling with the cursor, okay, all the way down. You're going to be filling those in with examples of the things with the letters. So A here, we'll talk about what that looks like in just a sec. Small side note, the stuff that's on the side, these related thematic learning objectives, these are where the actual exam questions come from on the AP exam. You'll probably see a few more of these packets from Mr. Beichner when it comes time to do end of the year review before the actual AP exam. And they're really good hints as to what types of questions you're going to get asked. So it tells you that you need to know how to explain how different labor systems developed in North America and the U.S. and explain their impacts or their effects, on workers' lives in U.S. society. It's pretty likely that you'll wind up with a question or two asking you things about like labor unions, for example, or how capitalism impacted workers' lives. Right? So those are good for end of the year review. For now, we're going to be kind of focusing on the stuff in the middle here. Okay. So what you need to do for this assignment, you need to take a look at each of the things with the capital letters next to them. So here we have A. In this case, we're going to look at following the Civil War one here for our sample. And what you're going to try to do is consider this sentence, this statement, whatever it is here, as though it were the thesis statement of an essay or potentially the topic sentence of a long paragraph in an essay. And then what you're going to put over here, which you're going to try to list in the packet to complete the assignment, are specific pieces of information. So like vocab level type information that you can use to prove this if it was your thesis. So if you're writing an essay with this as the thesis, what kinds of specific pieces of outside information would you include to make your point, to sort of show off your historical knowledge, etc. So we take a look at this first one here, A. Following the Civil War, government subsidies for transportation and communication systems helped open new markets in North America. So there's a couple of like nouns there, big nouns there. We've got transportation and communication systems after the Civil War. It's also good to know that government subsidies in this case means the government's paying for part of something. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here and I'm going to take a look through my notes, take a look through reading, search around online, search the deepest recesses of my brain, and try to come up with specific examples of transportation after the Civil War that helped open new markets specifically in North America. So I don't want to put things like, transatlantic steamers here, because that's not in North America, right? That would be new markets outside. I'm looking for stuff inside the United States, transportation and communications. Hopefully the first thing that jumps to your mind there is railroads. That's definitely the center point of this one. So you could write into this box over here, you could write in things like the Transcontinental Railroad. You could write in, since we're talking about the government impact, you could write in the act that funds the Transcontinental Railroad, what's called the Pacific Railway Act of 1862. You could write in the names of some of the specific robber barons who were involved in building the railroad. You could write in the Credit Mobilier Company, for example, big scandal around there helping to build the railroad. You could write in some of the names of the specific railroads. The Union Pacific is a good example of one of the ones that combines to build the Transcontinental Railroad. And then you could turn your attention to communication systems down here. So for communication systems in this time period, we get to telephones eventually. So you could certainly write down telephones and the inventor of the telephone. Take a sec to try to search your brain for that right now. Alexander Graham Bell. And then the other big communication system, of course, for a lot of this time period is the telegraph. So those would be things I'd be expecting to see over here. For each statements on this side, for each of these A, B, C statements in the box over here, you should have a minimum of like 3 specific things. And sometimes you can wind up with, if you're doing this well, you can wind up with like 10, 15 things that work for these are sometimes very, there's a lot going on or a lot to talk about. The thing that you need to be careful of is to make sure that they are vocab level, meaning like you could make a flashcard about it so that it doesn't just say over here something like businessman or like, you know, the West. Like those are, you know, correct things to know, but they're not really specific enough to help you get outside information points on the essay. So let's take a look at one more for examples, just so we can have a couple under our belts here. Okay. So how about this one? We're still in 6.1, so we're still talking about technology, right? And we're looking at also A here on your very next page. Some argue that laissez-faire policies, and this would be something you'd want to make sure you know the definition of, and competition promoted economic growth in the long run, and they oppose government intervention during economic downturns. So the first thing I notice in here is this last phrase, economic downturns, and that leads me to want to put over here a couple of examples of economic downturns in this time period, the time period from 1865 to ATD 1890s that we're working in here. So I would think of the Panic of 1873 and the Panic of 1893. Those are the 2 big economic downturns in this time period. When I see things like laissez-faire policies and competition, that makes me think of robber barons. So I might list the term robber baron over here. I might also list several specific businessmen that I think of when I think of robber barons. So you guys watched The Men Who Built America, so that should bring to mind people like Andrew Carnegie and John D. Rockefeller and several others. When I think about laissez-faire being good and opposing economic intervention, I also think about social Darwinism a little bit. That wouldn't be a bad thing to put over here. You might consider the term Gilded Age in general, all sorts of other things that could go over here. So basically what you're doing is you're trying to take a look at these, the A, B, C, D, and you're trying to come up with some specific items or specific events that you can put over to the right to support them. It's worth noting as you go through the packet that you probably will use several terms more than once. Like I would suspect Andrew Carnegie is a big figure in this time period. He probably will come up as a pretty good example for a couple of these terms as you flip through the packet, especially this first 6.1 stuff. So don't be afraid to use terms multiple times, but try to, you know, kind of go outside and think about the various terms themselves. Take a look at the various vocab lists that you've gotten for this assignment. You've got the terms list that you did with Mr. Beichner when he was here. You've got the terms list you used to make a timeline last week and perhaps today. Those are good sources as well. These are used by U.S. history, AP U.S. history classes all over the country. So you'll probably find some good stuff online. There's lots of videos that like walk through the packets and things like that. And you should be using this again to kind of focus studying to make sure that you have an idea about all of the major issues and concepts that you could potentially be asked about. If you get to something like one of these in here and you don't really have anything to say about it, that's probably a bad thing. That probably indicates that you need to go back, take a look at that section of your textbook and or watch a video online to get caught up on the content. Okay, so that's the basics of the assignment. The sub will tell you exactly what day the packet itself is due. I will be holding a content review session on Wednesday in the morning. I'll be in this room, in Mr. Beichner's room, starting at 8 a.m. and we'll go about to the bell. I'm going to hit on some of the highlights, like content-wise of the unit. I'll let you guys ask me any questions that you have about the unit or potentially about this packet. And the packet is going to be due on Friday. That's the day that you take the test for this class. So consider this as part of your studying for the test itself. Make sure that you get this done as thoroughly as possible. You have a little bit of time in class and then a bunch of time outside of class to work on it. Thanks, you guys, and I will be talking to you via video fairly soon.